Peter Pan. Like, share, and subscribe. In a corner house on a quiet street in London lived 3 children, Wendy, John, and Michael Darling. The children loved to tell stories of the brave Peter Pan and a magical place called Neverland. Their mother believed Peter Pan was the spirit of youth. Wendy, John, and Michael believed Peter Pan was a real person, and they made him the hero of their games. Peter Pan to the rescue, the boys would shout in their pretend sword fights. Peter Pan liked to visit the Darlings' house. The children believed in him. He would sit outside the nursery window and listen to Wendy tell wonderful stories about him. Peter Pan? Poppycock, said Wendy's father. He was tired of Wendy's wild stories and said it was time she moved into her own room. It was to be her last night in the nursery with her little brothers. Sooner or later, people have to grow up, Father said, but Wendy did not want to grow up. When the children fell asleep that night, Peter Pan and Tinkerbell sneaked into the house. They were searching for Peter's shadow. Peter and Tinkerbell looked all over the room. Finally, Peter went to the dresser and opened the top drawer. Out jumped his shadow. He chased it around the room until he woke up Wendy. She was excited to see Peter Pan. She pulled out a needle and thread and sewed the shadow to the tips of Peter's toes. This way, Peter Pan would never lose his shadow again. Peter was very upset to hear it would be Wendy's last night in the nursery. He wanted to whisk her off to Neverland, where no one ever had to grow up. Wendy and her brothers wondered how they would get to Neverland. Peter said they would fly there, of course. And with a sprinkling of pixie dust from Tinkerbell, they were ready. Come on, everybody, he said. We're off to Neverland. Peter Pan led the way as he, Wendy, John, and Michael soared over the city of London. They flew high above the rooftops, among the clouds, on and on to Neverland. Waiting for Peter Pan in the water off Neverland was a pirate ship commanded by the terrible Captain Hook. He wanted to find Peter's hideaway and capture him. Hook didn't like Peter, but even worse, he despised the crocodile that had sunk his teeth into him in a fight with Peter Pan long ago. Whenever Hook heard a tick-tock, tick-tock, he knew the hungry crocodile was lurking somewhere in the waters nearby. When Peter and his friends reached Neverland, they perched on a cloud overlooking the island. Peter pointed out his favorite places like Mermaid Lagoon. Suddenly there was a bang. Captain Hook had fired a cannonball right at Peter Pan. Peter told Tinkerbell to take Wendy, John, and Michael on to safety with the Lost Boys while he distracted Hook. Tinkerbell was jealous of Wendy, so she flew too fast for the children to keep up. When she reached the Lost Boys, Tinkerbell told them to try to knock Wendy from the sky. The Lost Boys hurled stones and wood swords into the air. Wendy lost her balance and began to tumble into the ground. Just as she was about to crash onto the rocks below, Peter Pan swooshed down and rescued her. Peter was angry and charged Tinkerbell with high treason. "Are you guilty or not guilty?" he asked her. Tinkerbell was guilty, and Peter Pan banished her from the island forever. Wendy said that was a bit harsh. "Okay," said Peter, "for a week then." Once Wendy, John, and Michael were safely on the ground, they were eager to explore Neverland. John and Michael marched off into the woods to play follow the leader with the Lost Boys, and Peter took Wendy to visit Mermaid Lagoon. As Wendy met the mermaids, Captain Hook paddled by in a small boat with Tiger Lily and Indian Princess. They were headed for Skull Rock. Peter and Wendy followed them to see what they were up to. Captain Hook had captured Tiger Lily and wanted her to reveal Peter Pan's hideaway. Tiger Lily wouldn't tell Hook anything. Peter wanted to rescue the princess, so he began to play tricks on Hook. Peter flew into the air, taunting and teasing the captain. They battled up and down Skull Rock, spinning and jumping over the rocks. Peter Pan was too fast for Hook and quickly got the better of him. Suddenly, Hook heard the familiar sound of tick-tock, tick-tock. His eyes bulged. His teeth chattered. It was the crocodile waiting for him. Captain Hook splashed into the water, and the crocodile chased him all the way back to his ship. Peter Pan rescued Tiger Lily and returned her to her father, the Indian chief. Back on the pirate ship, Captain Hook was angrier than ever. He thought Peter Pan had made a fool of him, so he devised a plan to get Peter once and for all. Hook heard that Peter had banished Tinkerbell from Neverland. "Maybe she can lead us to Peter Pan," Captain Hook said. Tinkerbell sat alone in the woods and was miserable. She missed Peter and the Lost Boys. As she watched them dance around the Indian chief's campfire. It didn't take long for Captain Hook to capture Tinkerbell and bring her back to his pirate ship. Hook pretended to be Tinkerbell's friend and tricked her into showing him the way to Peter Pan's hiding place. Tinkerbell made Hook promise not to lay a hand or a hook on Peter. Hook promised, but he was deceitful. After Tinkerbell showed him the way to the hideout, Hook locked her up in a glass case. After the campfire, Wendy, John, and Michael were ready to return home. The Lost Boys were ready to return home, too. Peter was sad that they would want to leave Neverland. He wanted them to stay and warned them, "You can go back and grow up, but just remember, once you go, you can never come back." Captain Hook and the pirates were waiting in the woods as the children left Peter's hideaway. The pirates captured all of Peter's friends, Wendy, John, Michael, and the Lost Boys. Hook took them back to his ship and tried to make them become pirates. Captain Hook said they could join up or walk the plank. Peter Pan will save us, Wendy said confidently. Captain Hook and his pirates laughed. They told Wendy they had left a present for Peter and it was set to explode at 6 o'clock, and that was just seconds away. At the last moment, Tinkerbell escaped and flew to Peter Pan. She warned him about Captain Hook's plan. There was a loud bang and black dust flew everywhere. Peter Pan climbed out of the ashes and looked for Tinkerbell. She had saved his life. Peter called her name and heard the faint tinkling of her bell deep in the rubble. Peter knew the others needed his help, but he had to save Tinkerbell first. Even though they had argued, Tinkerbell meant more to Peter Pan than anything in the whole world. Back at Hook's ship, the pirates made Wendy walk the plank. When she reached the end of the board, Wendy closed her eyes and bravely took the final step. Captain Hook listened for a splash, but he didn't hear one. He shouted to his pirates, demanding to know what had happened. Suddenly, Peter Pan flew through the air with Wendy safely in his arms. He had caught her just before she fell into the water. Tinkerbell hovered beside them. "This time, you've gone too far, Hook," Peter shouted. Peter Pan freed John, Michael, and the Lost Boys, and together they battled the pirates. Peter flew through the air and lunged at Hook. The captain waved his hook and chased Peter Pan up and down the ship. "Come back here, you coward," shouted Hook. Peter said nobody called him a coward and got away with it. After a long and fierce battle, it was clear Peter had beaten Hook. Peter told him he was free to go, but Captain Hook was a cheat and he made one last lunge at Peter. Hook slipped and fell down, down, down into the water below. Tick, tock, tick, tock, the crocodile was waiting for him. Snapping its jaws, the crocodile swallowed Captain Hook in one gulp. Hook climbed right back out of its mouth, carrying an alarm clock he had found inside. The pirates jumped in a rowboat and followed after their captain. Hook disappeared from Neverland, racing through the waters to get away from the hungry crocodile. Peter Pan set sail on Captain Hook's ship. He understood that his friends wanted to find their way home. With a sprinkle of pixie dust, Tinkerbell turned the ship into gleaming gold, and it soared through the sky back to London. Wendy's parents opened the nursery door and found the children asleep. Wendy awoke and pointed up to the moon and Peter Pan's pirate ship sailing across it. Her parents stared out the window. Father said he had a strange feeling he'd seen that ship before. He was beginning to believe.